What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are going to be making a 3-round mock draft over these next 2 days, split up into rounds 1 and then rounds 2 and 3, just like the regular mock draft post trade deadline. I wanted to drop it earlier today, but I was like, damn, we know that there's going to be a ton of crazy moves. There wasn't. There was a couple of them, and that's going to affect what the mock draft is going to be. So might as well wait. Maybe lose out on some views here, some views there, but that is a-okay. You know what? We're here to create some quality stuff. Let's have some fun here. If you guys are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, join the community because I make content like this every single day, damn near, and definitely every single week. So let's get right into this. Let's have some fun. This is a live mock draft. So feel free to put your comments down below. We love that good football discourse. This does have trades. So starting out with the number 1 overall selection. I'm looking at a couple of teams that might be gearing up for a move to move up to number 1. I know it's going to hurt my good old Cardinals fans here. Marvin Harrison Jr. is worth the number 1 pick if you don't get a good enough offer. This wide receiver class is very deep. The comparative value of you getting multiple first round, multiple second round picks is just worth more. And, I do think a team should be moving up to 1. I see a team like the Packers being a dark horse team for this. I know it's not usually in their DNA, but it's a team that doesn't need very much at all. And I'm sure they'd be perfectly happy, like especially since they moved up to another 3rd round pick with the Rasul Douglas trade, that they certainly are a front runner for this. I'm going to hit the pause button on that idea for now. And I'm going to have the Cardinals do a very smart trade, which is trade in very, very close range with the New York Football Giants. Obviously, it's going to require at least 2 first-round picks. I do think it might cost this 36th pick, and I'm honestly going to toss in that pick as well. We might have to toss in a 2026 second-round pick, and that's going to be part of this deal. For that, I'm going to toss in pick 79. I mean, I do think that the Giants could end up dealing, potentially Evan Neal in this trade, just because, you could always use him somewhere on the offensive line, and it's always a benefit because nothing else is really necessarily a great addition to this team. Why is Leonard Williams still on here? We'll fix that in a second. Don't worry about it. So, yeah, it's going to be 1, 2, 1, 2, and then also a second-round pick in 2026. They're going to get a third-round pick back this year. So tomorrow, you guys will still have 2 picks to deal with. And the New York Giants have now officially moved up to number 1 to select Caleb Williams. The spotlight's on him. He's able to handle it. He's in LA right now. Obviously, there are some questions over his leadership capabilities, given the fact that he has a very off and on temper, to put it very mildly. He doesn't necessarily have the greatest emotional maturity, but his talent's through the roof. People love to hate on him, and that's kind of what you're expected in the Big Apple anyways. So Caleb's been able to perform, even though he has his bad games here and there. There's a good chance he ends up returning, but for now, we're going to consider him coming out. Shadur, in that case, is returning. I know that Prime is certainly not going to be a big fan if his son leaves, especially given his big vision of being able to get more offensive linemen there in Colorado. So my idea is if Caleb goes out, then Shadur comes in. If Caleb comes in, Shadur's out. So take that premise for this video. At pick number 2, the Bears would be foolish not to go after Marvin Harrison Jr. It's just one of those players that you can't miss on. I know I just traded back with the Cardinals, but the Cardinals have more issues to fix, and I don't think the value of Drake May at this point is as high as Caleb Williams. But this pick, you can certainly still make a move here. So the question is, do you want to go after someone spectacular like Brock Bowers, or do you want to, stay in, or do you want to move for a team that wants Drake May? I think what I would do in this situation is move back for a team that wants Drake May. Now, I do think you could be in the market for going after a quarterback in this situation, but given the moves that the Bears are making, it looks like they're really trying to gear up for a win now move. You could certainly go after the Drake May route. He is a different quarterback than Mitchell Trubisky. You know, he's better than Mitchell Trubisky by a long shot. But I'm not going to do that to y'all Bears fans. Just not what I'm going to do. I am going to trade this pick. And looking at teams that'd be very good fits, of course, if you're going to trade in division, you could do the Green Bay Packers. I'm not going to do that. We're going to make a small trade here. And that's with the New England Patriots. I think this is a good range for the Patriots to be like, it's going to cost us maybe a second round pick. I think we'll take I think what the goal of this trade is for the Bears to get their second round pick. I don't think New England has a billion needs, and they're very good at sniping talent down the board in the first place. I feel like the Bears could be perfectly happy with this. Like maybe you snag like a future fourth. Like you do you. You can negotiate past this. I'm obviously the only things that pertain to this video and tomorrow's are going to be within this range right here. But we're going to force this trade on through. New England moves up to 3. Chicago gets their second round pick back. And Drake May is selected. Just sometimes you take the swing on the player when you believe it's time to take a swing. At pick number 4, we are back with the Cardinals. Yes, we lost out on Marvin Harrison Jr. There's a billion players that we get to go after. Brock Bowers is starting to become more and more intriguing to me, though. I am going to just put that out there. Ertz doesn't have many years left, if any. I feel like he could retire at the end of this year. Trey McBride hasn't stepped up to be an elite weapon the way we were kind of all hoping he would. And then if you wanted Marvin Harrison Jr., Brock Bowers very well might provide a very similar value, even if you use him as a wide receiver. Very similar to what you saw back in the day with Kyle Pitts. One of the best blocking assets that I've seen. And again, that's a big plus when you have a small quarterback. Very smart. He sits down in the soft spots, which I know Kyler will be very appreciative of. And he runs like a freaking mule after the ball is in his hands. He is a beast, and he's hard to take down. To me, if I'm the Cardinals, I just got set up for the future, like big time. And while doing that, I also want to have foundational pieces on my team. Stuff that players that other teams can't necessarily replicate. Offensive line's developing. We could still get, a center here and, the stuff there. But for me, I'm going to take a different route, and I'm going to be going after the Brock Bowers selection here. In pick number 5 for the Bears, I really like the idea of Olu Fashanu here. Now, he had a rough go with JT Tuimoloau. That's obviously an issue. And you could have some issues here pertaining to how Olu will face power rushers like Rashawn Gary and i.e. the entire Packers roster. You could certainly have those concerns. And they're very valid. Part of me does wish that y'all traded Jalen Johnson just so I had an easy pick here with Kool-Aid McKinstry, but we are not getting that lucky today. I think it's worth taking the shot on Olu because he's so young and because he's still developing. And it's essentially one area. There's not many other areas where he needs vast improvement. His anchor is one of them. And I feel like based on his size, maneuverability, that's an area that should be easily improved upon. I feel like it might just be something that he needs to get more comfortable with rather than the fact that he lacks an anchor. He has good size to him, best, like unbelievable mobility. For me, in this instance, you get Marvin Harrison Jr. and Olu Fashanu. Again, those are cornerstone pieces for the future. At pick number 6 with the Packers, I do think quarterback should be on the radar. I know that 1 billion drops are a massive reason why y'all did not appear as good as y'all actually are, especially Jordan Love in that game. There's no excuse for that. Now, when looking at potential options at this point, you got pretty much Joe Alt. That's the guy who's worth it at this point. Now, you could be looking down the line for, a slot to replace Rasul Douglas. You got safeties in the mix. Like, I do think Cooper DeJean would be an amazing choice. That being said, not worth it remotely at this pick. So we're going to go with the boring-ass pick with Joe Alt. It's a Packers thing to do to go after boring picks. But At the same time, you're getting somebody, especially since Bakhtiari has what 1 year left. God only knows if he even plays that year. He's just not reliable. And he's been the cornerstone for this offensive line for a long time. You need to make sure that you hit on these picks. It's not a luxury anymore to be able to spend later round picks and hope that they work out at left tackle. That's just not a luxury you have anymore. Go get it, get your star, and just don't worry about it. That's the best thing you can do for a left tackle pick. At pick number 7, obviously I rushed this card right away. I'm going to go Kool-Aid McKinstry here out of Alabama, the best corner in college. Best name too, Kool-Aid. He's been maybe not the most flashy corner in the nation this year, but he's been one of the more consistent. He had a little bit of a rough outing versus University of Texas, but he himself was responsible for about 50 yards that game, and that's something I'm willing to take on. I think he has the physicality and the athletic profile very similar to Julius Brents. I think he's a little bit faster than Julius Brents as well, which he should be. It's not going to be 4, 5, 6. So there certainly are a lot of benefits to Kool-Aid. I think he could be a true corner one, and it's just a good cornerstone piece. I keep saying that phrase for guys like Brock Bowers, Olu Fashanu. Like, these guys are players that should be on this roster probably in 10 to 15 years. And that's what you should be going after in the top 10. Guys who are going to be on your team in a decade, because they're a foundation of your franchise. Like, these guys are the best of the best coming out. So they should be some of the best players on your roster. So at this pick right here, Jer'Zhan Newton's my early inclination. However, I do know there are several really good picks for this team. One of those being Bo Nix. He's been on a tear recently. And I feel like he's almost a little bit of the opposite of Quinn Ewers. He gets really in rhythm early on, and he's hard to stop. I feel like sometimes as the game progresses, he ends up tapering a little bit with his ability to anticipate, but overall, still phenomenal. Like, there's a throw here and a throw there that I'm not a huge fan of, but just he's been able to throw with anticipation. That is, first off, a huge plus. But when you look at Quinn Ewers, he sometimes has a really rough start to a game, like a really rough start. But once he gets in rhythm, by the end of the game, this guy is almost unstoppable. So it's intriguing to see the difference between the two. Now, I just don't know if Bo is going to be the right pick at this selection, but there are plenty of teams that I think would be an excellent selection for Bo Nix. And like JJ McCarthy is in the mix as well. Don't get me wrong there. He's a very talented quarterback. He's a little bit thinner than I would like. And I feel like for Las Vegas, I don't know. For some reason, I think Bo is just going to utilize the weapons a little bit better. So I'm going to go with Bo Nix here. I do think with the way he's been playing, and people talk like he's been in college for 80 years, but never hear that complaint when we're talking about Michael Penix. I don't hear that at all. I don't hear that when we're talking about Jordan Travis. Never hear that. But all of a sudden, for Bo Nix and Joe Milton, they're ancient quarterbacks. Like, if we're going to be critical of some players, but not critical of others, come on. Let's keep everybody on a similar playing field. If we want to criticize Bo Nix for being old, which he's not, 23 years old. Oh, he's going to be 28 by the end of his first contract. Okay, no one had an issue with Joe Burrow being that way. No one has an issue with Joe Burrow being that way. Players, like quarterbacks, last a lot longer. We're not talking about a 2-contract sentence anymore, where it's like, well, if you get him at 20 years old, you can get him for a 3rd contract. Now you're naturally getting 3 contracts. The question is, can you get the 4th? 15 years of development, essentially, you could it's worth saying, you know what, I'm fine with him retiring at 38 rather than getting an extra couple years out and him retiring at 40. That's my little spiel right there. Got to put that out there for the quarterbacks. Regardless, at pick number 9, the Broncos. I think this team should try to recoup some draft capital at this point. We got some star players on the board. There's a good chance you could potentially lose out on your star left tackle as well in Garrett Bowles. Did not trade him, though. A surprise. Didn't trade him. We'll see what happens with that situation, though. But I think I'm going to trade back in this spot just because I do think this team just needs to recoup capital. And look at that. We don't even have a second round pick here. So looking at the quarterbacks that are available, again, you got 2 top tier guys that are left, and you got a team that's vying for a quarterback at 13. I think a team like the Saints could try to make a small move up here. Now, I know it's not a huge need for the Saints, but not many positions are that big of a need, and you have that instant connection because they sent the Saints their first round pick, right? So when you have that connection right away, one, it makes the deals a lot more easy because you have those, you don't have to like massage people's egos trying to make a good connection. But also, the Broncos just, they need something more. And the Saints, I don't really trust that, a team couldn't jump up into this range. I know one quarterback's going to be going here. Could there be one going here? Could the Rams be in the market for one? I know that another team in your division could be trying to sneak into this range. So I think that with the way the Saints are playing now, pretty sure there's an out on Derek Carr's contract as well. Feel free to correct me if I am wrong in that situation. Funnily enough, we could be getting Denver's pick back here, but I am debating on essentially a move up for the Broncos from 73 to 41. And obviously, you could toss in maybe a compensatory third round or a fourth round pick in the future year to help the Broncos develop more capital. But for the Broncos, you need impact players. And I mean, the Saints, I don't see as many holes. I don't. And if you want to win now, win now. The Broncos aren't ready for it. They need more pieces. We have the Saints now moving back up with the Broncos and selecting a quarterback here. Michael Penix is probably going to be the best option. Y'all had a really, really positive tenure with Drew Brees, and that just shows that mobility is not going to be the end-all be-all for this franchise. And Michael Penix is still an amazing quarterback. He knows how to use weapons. Jalen Polk, in my opinion, could be roughly similar to a Chris Olave. You have Romo Dunze that could be a more athletic Michael Thomas. And you have even Jalen McMillan that could be, again, it's not a one-to-one comparison by any stretch, but I'm saying that he's used to utilizing weapons that are pretty much similar style. And we're going to go Michael Penix at this spot. It is an interesting question, like where is this tier 2 quarterback going to start? But it depends on the draft order, of course. At this point, though, I pick number 10 for this for the LA Rams. I'm debating going Talise Fuaga at this point, and the value is just too good. What's surprising, and I don't think people bring this up enough, the left tackles in this class are barren. Like, we have right tackle, potential center, but I guess you could say left tackle. Right tackle. An okay left tackle. Developmental right tackle. Not good left tackle. Solid right tackle. Pretty much interior offensive lineman. Like, they're ended off the year with a season-ending injury. So, you're not really getting very much in this class. So got to put that up there for, especially a pick like that. But for the Rams, I think I want to move back and get more draft capital. I want to find a team that needs an offensive tackle. And honestly, if the Buccaneers are missing out on the QBs, Talise Fuaga is going to be a really good pick. So I do know that the Commanders are probably going to be the team that I end up selecting Talise for. So I'm actually going to have a small move up here. And I apologize to the Washington Commanders fans, but the Los Angeles Chargers are going to make the move. So the Rams, we're going to stick in LA. I think it will take roughly a third-round selection to get this job done. I think that's perfectly fine. The Chargers don't need a ton, and the Rams, they don't need that much because they're luckily hitting on a lot of their picks from last year. This is going to be Talise Fuaga, my number 3 player in the NFL draft. Just a superstar right tackle. He was my number 11 player coming into the year, and he's just gotten better and better and better, and I love to see progression. And he's able to handle the best edge rushers in the Pac-12 very, very well. For me, that's all I can really ask for. So, superstar, potential generational talent there in Talise Fuaga. At pick number 11 for the Commanders, still looking at right tackle here with J.C. Latham. And I think I'm going to send the pick in. The offensive tackles are complete butt cheeks. And, hate to not sugarcoat it, but it's true. J.C. Latham. Some people say he's 360 pounds. Some other people say he's not. This is 335. I've heard 360. It doesn't even matter, 335 or 360. Regardless, that's a very large human being who moves very, very well. My one issue with him is not blocking through to the whistle. And I hope that is just, maybe just him not really realizing what he's doing. And then they point it out and he fixes it. I'm essentially assuming that's what's going to happen. If that's a personal issue, I'd never have him on my team. However, I'm going to be optimistic, and we're going to assume JC Latham gets his head and ass wired together. Again, there's not many really good tackles in this class, like we were kind of thinking. You had guys like Julian Pearl, who were supposed to be these really good depth tackles, and they're not doing too well. At pick number 12, though, so I'm debating on going just Jerzon Newton here. Johnny Newton's going to be an excellent selection on this team. We got Brock Bowers earlier, who's a cornerstone on offense. Let's get a cornerstone on defense. Jerzon Newton has way too much upside. One of the best block shedders I've ever seen. And he can play interior on a nose. He can play as a 3-tech. Hell, he can even play out wide as a pure defensive end. So for me, I love that versatility. You're going to be getting a guy who is just going to be an anchor on that defense. And especially given how Gannon had, pretty much one of the best defensive interior rotations like over his tenure. It's something he's kind of used to and something he probably wants back. So Jerzon Newton, the pick there. For the Buccaneers, I think it's time to test out the upside of J.J. McCarthy. The quarterbacks are going early, but, it is what could move the needle for this squad. And, you have one more year probably of Mike Evans, 1,000 yards. And, Chris Godwin, hopefully continuing his tenure there as well. Just take your best shot at it. J.J. McCarthy, there's not many quarterbacks. Again, I really like Joe Milton, but he even is starting to lose a bit of steam for me. He's not progressing. And something I will always admit is I'll say how good I think the player is. I thought Joe Milton played phenomenally at the end of last year. His game versus Clemson was one of the best I've seen from a quarterback that essentially had no resume worth noting. It was one of the best games I've ever seen. And I was extremely high on him. He started out the year and he had some pretty damn solid performances. Even versus Florida, he was doing well for a good portion of the game. My issue with Joe Milton now is, and he's still a top 32 guy for me at the moment, but my big caveat with Joe is that he's not learning from his mistakes. Javon Foster is very similar for me. Both of them veterans, so funnily enough. But, tons of athletic talent, tons of potential, but they make the same mistakes over and over again, and they're not learning from them. That's an issue for me. Now, if Joe shows in the offseason, hey, I'm working with these QB coaches, my mechanics are improving, just like Anthony Richardson did, we can talk. And the offseason is a huge thing for me. It's why I didn't end up liking Isaiah McGuire remotely, within the same universe as I did back in the day. But, it's a big deal for me. So we'll wait on that. But at pick number 14, we're back with the Rams here. And, again, there's just so many good picks that you can make. I think the best one is probably going to be Jared Verse. So go after Jared, pair him up there with it's Byron Young, pretty sure. Tennessee edge rusher from last year. He was an absolute freak. So now you get a speed freak with someone who can do speed to power extremely well with Jared Verse. Leatu Latu, definitely in that consideration. Chop Robinson, definitely in that consideration. Dallas Turner, definitely. There's some good edge rushers in this class. Another reason why I wasn't a huge fan of the Bears signing of Montez Sweat or trading for Montez Sweat is because you're essentially going to be getting one of these dudes there. And you have to wait for them to be as good as Montez Sweat, sure, but man, that's tough. That is really tough. But at pick number 15, I think I'm gonna go back to my pick now after seeing what we got to see from Will Levis. I think Keon Coleman is the right move. You can tell that he loves to throw it up and just take risks. When you have a quarterback who loves to take risks, give him somebody who he can rely on to make those risks less risky. So that's going to be Keon Coleman, big playmaker there out of Florida State, back-to-back Florida State edge rushers. At pick number 16, this team needs an infusion of something. And I feel like Dallas Turner could be that Randy Gregory replacement you're looking for. His versatility is unmatched. One of the best edge rushers, hands down in college, if not the best edge rusher. Him, Braylon Trice are up there. Of course, Jared Verse, Chop Robinson. These guys are phenomenal. Can't go wrong. I'm going to go with Dallas Turner, who is my number 1 edge rusher on my board. At pick number 17, I'm pretty strongly inclined to go after Amarius Mims. Again, it's one of those boring picks, but there's not many selections for the Jets that are worth it. And like if I wanted to make this really tough on myself, I'd say Amarius Mims is returning. But given the fact that, returning doesn't always equal a better return on your investment, I'm going to assume that he's like, you know what? I'm still getting first round hype. I'm coming out. Amarius Mims is the selection there to be that right tackle spot. At pick number 18 for the Cincinnati Bengals, we did not end up seeing a trade with T. Higgins. I don't know what that means, but what I do know is that there is a chance you guys keep him. There's a chance. And if there's a chance, I think the slot might be open. We have Kalen King on the board too, who's a beast. Probably should be taking him sometime soon. But I'm looking at Emeka Ibuka right here to replace Tyler Boyd. And, the receiving core is so crucial to this team. Without a tight end on the board, you want a reliable option, and this guy just brings the heat. Looking at the other offensive linemen available, there's just nobody. Again, Graham Barton's interior. There's no tackles on the board that I am really confident in. So looking at the next best thing, it's going to be Emeka. And based on my board as well, you got Christian Haynes, but that doesn't really fit what you're looking for. Johnny Wilson, but I guess you could go Johnny and put him in the slot. That'd be intriguing because you can use him as a tight end as well. This is going to be one of those weird picks. I think I might do this as a trade back, but I'm essentially calling in a Johnny Wilson pick to the Cincinnati Bengals. He's going to be a hybrid tight end wide receiver, but we're going to do a trade back first because I feel like that's the fair thing to do. You got Cooper DeJean on the board, and I think he is spectacular. One of the more talented defensive backs that I've seen. Now, a team I could see making a move for him, the Buffalo Bills. They just paid a 3rd round pick for Rasul Douglas. Again, no disrespect to Rasul, but, I don't know about that one, I just don't know about that price tag. That was very, very rich. Looking at some other teams that could be in the market for it, the Philadelphia Eagles, that's a long-range trade. The Vikings actually could be a really good spot. Now, unfortunately, there's no quarterbacks that are really good on the board. Just got to call it out as it is. There's not a very good one. The next best one is going to be Joe Milton. It just is. There's nobody remotely available. Again, Shedeur is returning in this instance. It's going to be Quinn and it's going to be Joe. Those are the two guys. I don't know if I feel comfortable taking them at 20. But the question is, do you feel comfortable waiting for them? That's another gamble on its own. But you know what? I think that there are going to be no takers for this. And I'm going to stick my flag in the ground. It's my mock draft, right? I think Johnny Wilson is a generational level talent, 6'7", 240 pounds. I think he's one of the best physical athletes that you will find. Got to watch him as he played high school against my own there at Calabasas. And he's a special, special player. I think that if you don't take Johnny Wilson here, the teams I'm probably going to take him for, if we're going to be honest, Jacksonville and the Chiefs. Do you want, you're essentially disarming your competitor. I was going to try to trade back for it, but I can't find any suitors that would buy that pick. And if Johnny doesn't work as a wide receiver in the slot, which he will, you have an all-star tight end because he's good at blocking too. Complete mismatch. One of the sleeper picks in the draft. I don't know why there's so much hate on him, but I'm perfectly fine with it. At pick number 19, we have Kalen King on the board and Cooper DeJean. Both of them are spectacular players. I think this is where we're going to have a small range trade up with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that it's time to, get our head and asses wired together. I feel like this is just going to be it's a cheap trade. This could end up being future. Let's just be crazy and go future 3rd here. Maybe just to give a middle finger to Cleveland, we get to snag their pick back. But with this selection, the Steelers have moved up to select Kalen King, boundary corner out of Penn State, to pair back up with his buddy Joey Porter Jr. Pick number 20. This is going to be Cooper DeJean. You're going to find a role for him on your defense. He could end up being one of the best safeties in the NFL. He could end up being a top-tier return man. He can end up being a wide receiver for all I care. He is going to make your roster, and he's going to start. He's going to make an impact. Year 1, year 2, year 10. That's a player that's worth a top 10 pick based on my logic. However, depends on how highly you value those positions. So we got Cooper DeJean there at pick number 20. Pick number 21. This is probably going to be an edge rusher. I did hear that Montez Sweat was a potential landing spot for the Falcons, or the Falcons were a potential landing spot for Montez Sweat. And I do think that a guy like Braylon Trice fits up that alley. I think Chop Robinson's spectacular. You can't go wrong with these edge rushers. They are phenomenal. And I mean phenomenal. Braylon Trice is going to be the guy. 270 pounds. He fits that Bud Dupree mold as well that y'all brought in the offseason. He just fits exactly what your defense is going for. And versus Stanford, 16 pressures. Yes, 16 pressures. That's crazy. He's back. He was my number 2 edge rusher coming into the year. Ended up being my number 3. Probably going to be still my number 3 or number 2. Who gives a damn? They're all pretty much tied up there at the top. Pick number 22 for the Texans. I could see this being a good trade back spot. We got Emeka Egbuka here. Again, I am really tempted to pair him back up with CJ Stroud, but I'm going to pass. You got some really good edge rushers here. You got all roads lead to Rome. You got a Mecca on the board. Like, there are some very talented players. Going through, my next best player is Christian Haynes, but after that, it's going to be Leonard Taylor, Chris Jenkins. Both those guys will be most likely falling on my board because they have not been performing well as of late. Tight end's not worth it for this team. I think your receiving core is perfectly fine at the moment. It really is defensive interior, and that's something you could, essentially move down for. So for me, at this point, this is a good trade down spot. I don't feel like the value is good enough for us. You could go Graham Barton here and have him be your center / tackle / guard. And that's actually, honestly, I'm starting to convince myself that's a really good move because, again, injuries, unfortunately, have been the name of the game for y'all. And his mobility is spectacular. It could give him a little bit of a sensation of what he used to have there on his offensive line. We're going to go Graham Barton. We are. He's not a tackle, but he can fill in case of injury, which, again, y'all are quite accustomed to at this point. There's just not good enough value for anything else, and I probably would have taken Graham Barton with the Niners. So, Niners, who got Chase Young for pennies on the dollar, what do I get for you? So, I'm thinking Christian Haynes might be worth it at this point. I might put my foot down and go back to what's best on my board rather than what's just best in general in terms of what other people think. I do believe that might be the route I go. It's best to get cheaper on the offensive line whenever you can. It's tough to find guys who are worth these picks, but I do believe Christian Haynes, with the fact that he rarely ever lets up pressure. He's the most athletic guard I've ever seen, and he's just, I don't know, he's almost like the Talise Fuaga for me at the guard spot, even though I feel like, I was probably, the consensus was higher on Christian Haynes before Fuaga, but I'm going to go Christian Haynes here. I think he's just a great fit for this roster. Corner is in the air. Again, Nate Wiggins was there, but I'm not fully sold yet. Versus Christian Haynes, he's going to be a day one impact, and it's worth it. It's really worth it, especially given the fact that quarterback health has been a primary concern. You need something, and Christian Haynes can give that to you. Tyler Guyton would have been a different move, but I just don't trust. I trust Christian Haynes to hit the ground running. No pun intended, because I just talked about his athleticism, but I don't trust any of the rest of the players to be day one starters. I trust Christian Haynes to be a day one starter. So for the Bills here, I might be in the mood for some Nate Wiggins here. This might be the pick where I go Nate Wiggins. Again, could have went him for the Niners. Just don't know if they're going to go after corner round 1. I think Nate Wiggins is the way I'm going to go. So obviously he showed a lot of desperation by essentially saying, hey, we're going to send a 3rd round pick. And yes, you got a 5th round return for Sewell Douglas. Your defensive backs, especially given the fact that Kyer Elam has not panned out the way I was hoping he would, it shows that you do need something on the boundary. And Nate Wiggins has gotten a ton of hype. I'm going to take him here to the Bills. At pick number 25, I used to say defensive interior is the automatic pick for me. It can't be anymore because you just sent a second round pick there for Leonard Williams. Now, the question is, do you want a Mecca to pair back up with Jackson Smith and Jigba? The issue is, I think that Malik Neighbors fits the role of Tyler Lockett a lot better than anybody else on the board. And Tyler Lockett's getting up there in age. He's getting expensive. It's not going to be easy. I do think we could trade out of this spot. It's not going to be easy. Hey, there's Edgerrin Cooper. He's actually going to be featured in this week's video for the stock report. He's a good player too. That guy he is a statistical monster. But looking at this spot, I'm actually going to take a shot on the future here. Malik Neighbors. I know a lot of people bring up QB, but it's too early for the other guys. Even though I do have Joe sitting here at 27 on my board, even that's me holding on to hope, not necessarily reflecting how he is performing right now. At pick number 26, I do think corner could be on the board here for the Cowboys, even though DeRon Bland looking like a second coming out there. A wide receiver is not out of the question here. We have a video that I posted yesterday with Devin Jackson from the Philadelphia Inquirer. He actually took Chop Robinson to be the eventual replacement there on the defensive line for DeMarcus Lawrence. And essentially, he's so raw, he needs to be trained up by Micah Parsons. And I know you guys have a solid edge group there, but I'm starting to really like that option. Now, again, talking about tackles, Jordan Morgan might be the best day one starting tackle. Kingsley Suamate is just not comfortable at left tackle. He's just not. And so I'm going to be taking him as a right tackle for whenever I do take him. This is not the spot. And, unfortunately, but very fortunately, Tyler Smith has turned out to be an all-star guard. And so it doesn't leave you very many valid options at this point. And I don't really know if we're going to see, I don't think we're going to be seeing Jerry step down in terms of trading down in this draft. We're going to see him go after Chop. We're going to go that way. And this is it's a weird pick. I get it. It's a longer term investment because I think Chop could be a top 10 edge rusher in the NFL if he's in the right situation. And what's a better situation than essentially being trained by D-Law in his final years and then also being trained by Micah Parsons? This is your he should be a top 10 pick. It's just not many teams need edge rusher as much as maybe we think. And so Chop Robinson is the selection. Also, think of it this way. You have just disarmed the Eagles from potentially getting Chop, but also the Commanders, who are pretty desperate for edge rusher now. Even though I could have gotten one right up here for them, dude, that offensive line is ass. It's straight up, I'd rather take shots on edge rushers down the board than tackles. And I'm pretty happy with that. At pick number 27, we still got Latu. We still got Rome. We still got a Mecca on the board. There's going to be some dude that we need to be a wide receiver one. Question is, who do you believe could be a wide receiver one? That guy is all roads lead to Rome Odunze. Guard is now guard was solidified as an issue when they just traded for Ezra Cleveland, but definitely something to keep your eye out on. Another great guy there would be Latu, but again, you can do with that as you please. For the Ravens, I do think a corner is the smart move here, and we're going to be going Denzel Burke. I think Denzel has just been phenomenal, and, I had hopes for him. He's my corner 3 coming to the year, stays corner 3, and, going to continue staying corner 3. For the Lions, this is either going to be a Mecca Buka, kick him out wide, or it's going to be Leatu Latu. And here's my thought process. Or it could be Chris Jenkins. But again, there are some good run stuffers down the board. I don't feel like I need to force a defensive interior pick here. Latu has unbelievable potential. He essentially is so athletic, you can use him in James Houston's role, but he's going to be almost the same weight as Aiden Hutchinson. He has the finesse of Houston, not the power of Aiden Hutchinson. So that's where my disconnect is with the other people who are studying the draft. His power is not necessarily consistent enough for me to be comfortable with him being a top 10 pick. But at this spot, he's athletic enough. He's not going to be the number one edge rusher on the team. It's worth it. Take the shot. Leatu Latu, edge rusher, UCLA. Pick number 30. So this pick, I'm probably going to trade because you got Emeka Egbuka on the board. I think that's just the best thing to do. And we need to get a team who would like Emeka Egbuka. You know, a team would really like Emeka Egbuka. The team that says that we need to get a number one wide receiver. You know, also team would like it? Eagles. But guess who I'd want to trade with? I want to trade with a team that I'm not going to face in the playoffs. Or in the Super Bowl. So that's going to be the Carolina Panthers. They're going to give up pick 102 to move up 4 spots. Again, if it ends up with you having to send one of these other picks, you do you. But the Carolina Panthers are moving up once again for a receiver. It's what I do pretty much every draft now. But again, there's going to be a receiver there. And it gets me excited. Emeka Egbuka out of the Ohio State University. Pick number 31 for Kansas City. I could see Leonard Taylor being a great fit here. And in fact, that's exactly who I'm going to take. Chris Jones, not mistaken, he's not even on a past a 1-year contract. Pretty sure he's on a 1-year contract. So y'all still need to go after defense interior. It's a damn good pick. Pick number 32 and ending off the first round is the Philadelphia Eagles. For me, developing the corners, apparently they were rumored to be in the Jalen Johnson talks. Could certainly be in the Kamari Lassiter talks then, because again, Georgia, so you have instant chemistry with the majority of the defense, but also he's going to be probably in the 4.3s, if not 4.2s. So you get the athleticism, and then you have 1 year of development with the vets. I think it might be the right move. So we're going to go after Kamari Lassiter with the last pick of the first round. That is going to be today's video. Stay tuned tomorrow for day 2, rounds 2 and 3 combined into one video. Super stoked for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you on the far side. Peace.